Today we moved into a different part of Lighthouse Books. I just got a bunch of books in, a shipment in, so I'm going to use that as a desk today because we have some things to sort of show and tell. We're going to talk a lot about jargon. I get a lot of questions about what does this mean? What does that mean when it comes to books? So today we're going to talk about how book things got their names and what they are and that sort of thing. To start off with, I need to show you, I need to have you imagine that this piece of newspaper is an old handmade sheet of paper. And from roughly the 1400s to the mid-1800s, that's exactly what was done. Rags were sort of mushed up and put on a screen and dried, and that made a large sheet of paper. Then letters were put in a big form, sort of battened down, and that form was put into a big old press, and the letters were pressed down onto the paper. If you took one of those pieces of paper and folded it in half, you could then print 2, 4 pages on 2 sheets. And this size was known as a folio. And that's exactly how our newspapers came to be. They're folio size, and generally, in the early days, they were just the 4 pages long. If you took a bunch of these things and sewed them all together, then you might get a folio size book. A folio size book today means a little less than it did in those days, but it does mean anything more than about 14 or 16 inches tall, just for that particular reason. It didn't take printers too long to realize that if they folded the paper a second time, they were able to get 4 sheets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would print more pages at the same time. This then is the size of a Neighborhood Times, a weekend edition of your local newspaper, and it also, because there are 4 sheets there, is called a quarto. Now, and one of these is called a gathering or a signature. And if you take these and sew a bunch of these gatherings, these signatures together, then you get a quarto size book, which is something about a foot tall, foot to 14 inches. You can tell a quarto, especially an older one, in an easy way, in as much as down at the bottom here of most pages, there will be a little alphabetical letter. Sometimes it's a number, but usually a letter, and that's for the binder. And if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, we come up with a different letter. There it is. And we started with the B, and then we got to the C. And each of those is a signature. Each of those was 4 pages apart. And when you see that sort of thing, you know that you're dealing with a quarto, because there are 4. If the binder decided to fold the paper again, his sheet of paper, he would then have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sheets, or an octavo. And if you sew those gatherings, those signatures together, then you have our standard size book, which is an octavo. It's abbreviated 8VO. So frequently when you're looking at a catalog of books, sometimes you'll see 8VO, original calf, and then the number of pages. Oftentimes people think that 8VO means that it's 8 volumes, and that's not true. It's 8VO because it's an octavo, and that tells you the size of the book. If you fold the pages just a little bit differently, then you get a 12mo or a duodecimo, which is 12 pages, of course. And if you do it a little bit more, if you make one more fold, then you can get a sextodecimo or a 16mo. This little book, of course, has paneled decoration and gilt decorations and devices. If you open up the cover, it has what are called dentelles. This gilt around the edges here, teeth, dentelles, and marbled edges, or marbled end sheets. It instead has all edges gilt. It has headbands where the sewing was done, and tail bands down here. This is the head of the book. This is the foot of the spine. Where the cover and the spine comes together, that's called the joint. And if you look inside these marbled papers, where the front cover and the text block come together is called the hinge. So sometimes when you see a description online, you'll see that the hinges are broken, which means that this area in here has come apart. Sometimes you'll see that there's wear along the joints, which is this area here. And these are a few of the names that we use in our book descriptions. There are, of course, many, many more. Maybe we'll talk about some of those another time. But in the meantime, I hope we've made your looking online or your looking at catalogs a little bit easier, and I'm glad you were here today.